Buddhism says there is no self. Hindu philosophy says the ultimate truth is the self. So which is it? Is the deepest reality of existence self or no self? At first glance, Buddhism and Hinduism seem to be making completely opposite claims. But what if this famous contradiction is actually just a result of language? What if both traditions are trying to describe the same thing, it's just this thing cannot be described at all? One of the most famous teachings in Buddhism is anatta, the doctrine of non-self. In the earliest Buddhist texts, the Buddha examines what we normally identify as me. The body, sensations, thoughts, even consciousness itself. And he concludes that none of them can truly be the self. In the Anatta Sutta, the Buddha says, form is not self, feeling is not self, perception is not self, mental formations are not self, and consciousness is not self. Because all of these things change, and none of them are under our full control, the Buddha says none of them can be the self. So Buddhism seems very clear, there is no self, and Advaita Vedanta seems to say the exact opposite. According to Advaita, the deepest truth of reality is Atman, the self, and Atman is identical with Brahman, the ultimate ground of reality. The Upanishads famously say, Tat Tvam Asi, you are that. So we seem to have a contradiction here. Buddhism is saying there is no self, and Hindu philosophy is saying the self is the ultimate reality. Both can't be right, can they? But to understand the Buddha's teaching properly, we have to look at what the Buddha was actually rejecting. The Buddha was saying that there isn't a permanent personal essence within us, some kind of inner soul that controls experience and remains unchanged through time. When the Buddha looked at experience, he saw that everything was changing. Everything was dependent on previous conditions. This became known as dependent origination. The Buddha summarized it simply. When this exists, that comes to be. When this ceases, that ceases. Reality is not made of fixed things. It is a dynamic process of conditions. That is why the Buddha warned against two philosophical extremes. One extreme is eternalism, the belief in a permanent, unchanging self. The other is nihilism, the belief that nothing really exists at all. The Buddha advised to sit right in the middle of these two things. Interestingly, later Buddhist traditions started using language that sounded surprisingly similar to an ultimate reality. The Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, a Zen scripture, says, know your own mind and realize your own Buddha nature, which neither rests nor moves, neither becomes nor ceases to be, neither comes nor goes. And in Tibetan Buddhism, the Dzogchen tradition describes the nature of mind like this: empty in essence, luminous in nature, and unceasing in expression. Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche, a Tibetan Buddhist, says consciousness, awareness, luminous emptiness, clarity, these aspects of reality are unborn and therefore do not die. So Zen and Tibetan Buddhists seem to talk about this pure awareness, something that is timeless and beyond birth and death. So if Buddhism rejects the self, then why do some of these schools of Buddhism seem to sound so similar to non-dual traditions? Well, Zen masters believe that it is the philosophical teachings themselves that can block awakening, because the mind is turning them into concepts. So, Zen developed strange teaching methods to break conceptual thinking. These are known as koans. One famous koan asks, does a dog have Buddha nature? And instead of explaining the doctrine, the Zen master replies mu, which essentially means no. The purpose of the koan isn't actually to give an answer, it is to collapse the question itself. Zen masters say, the moment you speak about it, you miss it. Taoist thinkers already had this similar insight about language. The opening of the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao, meaning the moment you try to describe ultimate reality, you turn it into something smaller than it really is. This idea deeply influenced the development of Zen. So now we can return to our original question: self or no self? To me, it seems like it's a contradiction of language. Some traditions describe ultimate reality positively: pure consciousness, Brahman, the self. Others describe it negatively: emptiness, suchness, non-self. But both traditions might be pointing towards something that cannot actually be described with words. When Yongey Mingye Rinpoche described his near-death awakening, he said, "There was no me separate from the universe. No direction, no within or without, no perception or non-perception, no self or non-self." So Buddhism and Hinduism are using different words, and they're using different philosophical frameworks, but they might still be pointing to the same fundamental truth: that the deepest nature of reality cannot be grasped by the thinking mind. And when we try to put the ineffable into words, then contradiction naturally arises. But as Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj said, when you do not think of yourself as this and that, then all conflict ceases. So maybe Hinduism and Buddhism are pointing towards the same truth. But if that's the case, surely Christianity can't be pointing that direction too, can it? Or could it be that parts of the Bible are functioning like a Zen koan? If you're interested about that idea, then watch this video next.